I love keynote speaking. I mean, it thrills me to stand in front of an audience of people who are eager to learn and ready to apply what they're learning so that they can make better decisions and ultimately accelerate their organizational results. And at the heart of that is what I refer to as the 4 virtues of a leader. Each one of them answers a question. Focus answers a question, what am I creating? And I'll elaborate these in each in turn. Courage asks the question, what am I avoiding? I've found that I don't avoid things that are really fun. I tend to avoid the things that are a little anxiety-provoking, scary, uncomfortable. Grit. You guys familiar with the term grit? How many Southerners here? Anyone from the South? So it's not that grits. It's a mindset of grit. Grit answers the question, what am I sustaining? Grit is, to me, one of the interesting pieces of the conversation. They all are, but I'll tell you my quick definition of grit. It's applying yourself when you have no enthusiasm. If you're enthusiastic, you don't require grit, right? If you're motivated, you don't need grit. Grit is that fundamental virtue that you draw on when you're disheartened, frustrated, and completely unmotivated. And I'll get more to that. And then faith. And I'm not actually talking about any religious denomination in particular. I'm talking about the leap of faith. It asks the question, what am I letting go? We are hypnotized, so to speak, in the culture to believe that growth and evolution always means more. And in a leadership role, it always at some point means less. By less, I mean you have to let something go. Because if you take it on, continue to take it on, do it yourself, do it individually, do it independently, are you really leading? Maybe some of the time, but part of the role of leader is to let go. And you have to pass it on. What am I surrendering? What am I letting go? But what's very satisfying is ultimately to watch people change their level of thinking and transform. And transform not into what I think they should be, but transform in what they believe they can be, and ultimately drive that through their behavior into the organization as a whole. Seeing people turn on and grow in awareness is deeply satisfying. Focus is what am I creating, and you're always creating. And how do you do that? We don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. I do not see the world as it is. And how do I know that? Because when we're in a meeting and there's 150, 200 people here, and I would ask you, each one of you after the conversation, what did you think about what you heard? There'll be about 150 versions of what came out, right? Yeah, because you don't see the world as it is. Yes, there's data, there's facts, there's color, there's sound, but then you make it your own. And so how do you make it your own? And what does that mean in terms of leadership? It means that you are bringing yourself to your leadership role and you are co-creating the experience you're having. You have a responsibility in it. The first place you do it with is your beliefs. Your beliefs. Beliefs are ideas, they're judgments that we hold to be true. Right? I believe something. So if I believe that children should be, what was the expression in the old days? Should be seen and not heard? Yeah, that was a belief, right? That was one way then that would have certain consequences. If I believe that my children should be empowered, then when they are in fact empowered, sometimes I regret that, to be honest. Empowered teens, I'm not sure that's a brilliant idea, but I believe that that's important. So, I believe that people bring their best to the effort of the team. It has one kind of consequences. I believe that people are basically selfish and withheld. That has another. Are you following where I'm going with that? Your belief then, what your beliefs do is they set expectations. Expectations are strong anticipation of something that will happen. So Sarah is a director in an organization, and she is now frustrated because her team isn't coming up with the level of innovation that she knows they have in them. So Sarah and I got to talk, and I said, well, are they paid enough? It's always a good question, right? Because we can talk about beliefs and creation, but if somebody's underpaid, they're probably not that engaged. Are they paid enough? Yes. Do they have good good work environment? Yes. Okay, so what's going on? It's not environmental. Sarah says, I don't know what it is. I go into the meeting at the end, at some point, I'm the one who's coming up with all the ideas. Ever met Sarah? Yeah. Maybe you've seen Sarah in the mirror on occasion, I don't know. But, I said to Sarah, so how come it is you're coming up with all the ideas? Oh, I just have the best ideas. Okay, fair enough. We dug a little bit deeper. I'll skip the long story. Bottom line is Sarah is one of 3 sisters. Her older sister was the athletic one. Her middle sister was the bad attitude one. And Sarah was the smart one. in the household. You see where this is going already? So the smart one, because she really was smart, was then realized that she could stand out and get attention for being what? Smarter than who? Everybody else, right? Certainly her sisters. And so that worked really well in elementary school, right? Middle school, high school, college, into the job. Every time, Sarah is a smart one. So Sarah is super smart. She expects what of people around her then? They're what? Not as smart. Not as smart as her. She has to be the smartest one in the room. Her expectation is people won't be as smart. So then you go into behavior. How is she behaving? A little condescending, right? Maybe she trumps the idea. Oh, I have this idea. Oh, great idea. If we only did this on top of that, it would be even better. Good idea. Love it. Right? So she believes she's a smart one. She expects everyone's going to be just a little bit less smart than her. She behaves in such a way that demonstrates her intelligence. What does that lead to? The results that people are doing what? They are what? Not participating. They're silent. They don't want to be browbeaten and dismissed. And what does that prove to her? She's the smartest woman in the room. Congratulations. Are you already reflecting on this in your personal experience? An organization is only effective to the degree that the folks are aligned, working together in the same direction. I don't know how to develop wisdom as a standalone piece. What I do know is that wisdom is a derivative. It arises from an environment which we can help craft. So when we develop insight, when we increase our perspective, and when we can suspend judgment, the derivative, what arises, is wisdom. And the decisions made out of that place are powerful decisions that move the organization forward with acceleration and with direction. You are always creating, and the pieces I'm most concerned for you are these beliefs that are called limiting beliefs. A limiting belief is a strong expectation of something that predicts your behavior and choices. And the limiting beliefs oftentimes in the course of change, transition, difficulty, which is, by the way, leadership. Leadership happens when you're balancing results with uncertainty. Uncertainty is the inevitable reality within which you're operating and getting results, getting things done. Limiting beliefs are, this is too hard. I can't do it. We can't do it. It's all up to me. If I can figure this out, this would work out really well. How come somebody else is not stepping up? Are you hearing these are all the conversations in your head? And my invitation to you is to reflect on what are the beliefs that you're holding to be true and meaningful that may not be. Just because it's a belief you hold, it doesn't mean it's real cosmically. It does mean that it's real for you in the moment. And the limiting beliefs over time hold us back. They're a big ball and chain that prevents us from soaring and flying and leading. And so the invitation to you, if you're thinking even as simply as that beliefs, expectations, behaviors, results, if there are certain results that you are not happy with, take a look at what are the behaviors that you're contributing to it. Reflect on what are the expectations you have of people around them, and really dig into what do you believe to be true in that case that's driving those results. And be willing to be at least curious to shift it and change it. So that's the first place to start from, because what this enables you is it enables you to be in a place of responsibility, able to respond. Otherwise, you're in a place of reactivity, buffeted by the forces all around you, feeling disempowered, unable to affect, and therefore not really in the leadership mindset. So even if you were given the best skills and the best tools, and you believe that you are not empowered in your mind, you do not have the capacity to make a difference, you will not use the skills and you will not use the tools. So what is holding you back? What limiting beliefs are holding you back? You're not going to answer this in the next minute here, but I'd love for you to reflect on it, because it gives you an immediate ability to accelerate your effectiveness and to get some energy into your life. Virtue 1, focus. And I'm asking you not only to reflect on it, but to willingly consider doing something differently with it, changing it. I want to talk about why courage is not what you think. It's our brains, you see, that are the culprits in this fear experience. Most of the fear is generated by the same powerful brain that can visualize and make up story. The fears that we have, the fears that we believe, are stories in our heads. Fear of the dark, fear of heights, fear of failure, fear of rejection. Even if I were to stand at the top of a 1,000-foot cliff and look way down, which sickens me just to do it pretending right here. It sickens me because of a mix of real biological fear and the story, the movie that's happening in my head telling me how horrible it is. So we can't think our way out of what we're thinking our way into. We have to have some other way. We have to have some other process. And I call this process feel, face, and embrace. The first step is to feel the fear. It is the physiological experience of anxiety that is so repulsive to us. We will do anything to avoid it. TV, busyness, extra work, relationships, drugs, drinking, exercise. We have found all kinds of creative ways to avoid the inevitability of the visceral, disgusting experience of fear. But if you can't feel it, you can't go beyond it. You have to stop the intellectual process and find a way to create a pause. Feeling your fear is a simple way that you can pause. And it can be done as simple as 3 breaths. Simply breathe. Inhale. Exhale. For 3 cycles, and pay attention to the sensations. As you do that, you're creating a gap. In that gap, you're inserting choice. And from that choice, you cultivate the courage. My role, especially as a speaker, when I'm doing a keynote speech, is I really want to know what the client's strategy and intended outcome is. What's the audience purpose for being there? What are they committed to as professionals and as human beings? And if I can understand that, then I can present the content that they need in such a way that resonates with their culture, with their language, and with their mindset. It's not just words that are flowing from me to the audience. My real task, my real challenge, and my real pleasure in doing a keynote speech is helping the audience grasp the language with which to think about what they're doing. And the language of executives, the language of stewardship, the language of governance, the language of long-term strategy, that's a particular way of looking at the world. And I think what's most exciting to me is not just the conveying of symbols through speech, but helping shape a language, a consciousness with which the executives can then more effectively execute what they're responsible for. For forward movement to happen in an intentional way that is creative, in other words, different than what has happened before, 2 things have to happen. We have to change our thinking and we have to be transformed. And what really draws me to this work is engaging with smart, mature, competent, senior level leaders who are willing to be transformed and therefore transform the organization, and who are willing to do that by changing the way they're thinking and changing the way they're relating, and ultimately driving different, more interesting results for the organization. I am large. I contain multitudes. You're a leader. You are large and you contain multitudes. And awaken those multitudes to move with you. And it could be incredibly hard and lots of fun. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for inviting me. Good luck on your journey.